Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So Taryn, you guys have been asking for another Itx-Llama video going over Windows 98 3D gaming with a 3D accelerator card. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today. I already did the introductory video on this explaining what the Itx-Llama is, and I also went over a DOS tutorial showing you some of the best DOS games to play, because this board is absolutely amazing. Basically, it's a modern version of a retro gaming motherboard, and it also allows you to use 3D accelerator cards from back in the day, and today we're going to be using a brand new card that you guys have been asking to see. But to say the Itx-Llama has been a fun time would be an understatement. This is basically the full-fat retro PC gaming experience, except you get to use a modern form factor and a little bit of modern quality of life improvements on the board in and of itself. Sure, we have the system on a module, that Vortex chip, but being able to pop on an AGP card into that slot and get some of the graphics cards I always wanted to play back in the day, that's absolutely fun. I kind of just get to go through all of the hardware I wanted when I was a kid and take a look at it. It's all down to that system on a module in the middle, basically giving you the 486 and Pentium instruction set. And of course we have the AGP slot here today, and we're putting in a 3DFX Voodoo 3 card. That is the one you guys asked me to test most in the comments. And I just absolutely love seeing this fly over in Unreal here. When this game came out, we'd never really seen anything graphically like this, and I remember my graphics card, whatever it was back in the day, absolutely struggled with this game. I played it at probably 15 to 20 frames per second. I was absolutely stoked to be able to do that, even if it wasn't running well, just because I'd never seen something that looked this good on any piece of gaming hardware outside of something like Sega Model 3 in the arcades. So to see the Unreal fly through here on this new PC with a period accurate 3DFX Voodoo 3 card is just absolutely stunning. And just so you know, this is a 3DFX Voodoo 3 3000, so it does have those higher clock speeds, and that's definitely going to help us here. But as we jump into Unreal, I'm just blown away by how accurate this thing actually looks, and of course that's because it is being drawn on that 3DFX card from back in the day. All of the effects, all of the colors, all of the real-time lighting, this is what we were playing back when it came out, and we were absolutely excited to be able to see something this cool on our PCs. And I will say, obviously the graphics are antiquated by this point in time, but I think they still definitely hold up. Some of the models can be janky, but the overall visual storytelling, the environments of this game inhabit still 100% works as far as a vibe is concerned, and the Itx-Llama seems to keep up with this game totally fine. Every once in a while when there is a big explosion, you'll see a frame drop here or there, but I'm using this playing with the original drivers as well. There are improved drivers that you can get out there that have been made by fans that'll give you a little bit more performance, but I wanted to stick to the actual reality of what you would have been playing like had you had this PC back in the day. But do be aware that as far as drivers for graphics cards are concerned, there's been a lot of improvements. I just wanted to run this bone stock. Even in outdoor areas, the frame rate is persisting. I was running this at 800 by 640, and I probably could have jumped up one more resolution bump, but I figured I would kind of run it at what you typically run it back in the day. And honestly, getting some of the highest resolutions out of this game, you'd probably need to have two different cards in SLI on the 3DFX side of things, because again, today we play games in 4K and 8K, and we don't think anything of it, but back in the day, getting anything further past 640 by 480 was considered high resolution, and you needed a decent PC to be able to run that. And of course, on the 3DFX side of things, you get OpenGL. You also get the Glide wrapper as well as 3DFX's proprietary software on how to actually render 3D. So it was a really easy choice to go with the Voodoo 3 because it gives you all of that different interoperability as far as games are concerned. There's definitely a few games out there that are exclusive to the Glide protocol, so you'd want a 3DFX card for that. But when we get into the open areas here, the frame rate still holds up, and some of these effects, like this mirrored floor here, just look absolutely stunning even today. You'll see all of the different effects something like Unreal can throw at you, and the developers definitely front-loaded it to show you just how pretty the game was. And here on the Itx-Llama with the 3DFX Voodoo 3 card and the system on module running at 500 MHz with active cooling, you can tell that this is just holding up. You could play the entirety of Unreal from start to finish like you had an absolutely amazing PC back when the game came out, and that's all I really care about, because of course there's tons of different ways to play something like Unreal, but playing it on period accurate hardware with the Voodoo 3 definitely is a ton of fun. And all of this off a mini ITX computer that basically sips power and could sit in one of the smallest cases around if you just use some sort of riser cart or cable to bend that PCB on the 3DFX to the right 90-degree angle. And I'm definitely still looking for a case, so if you think of anything, leave me a comment down below. And I absolutely love playing Hexen 2 back in the day. Definitely not as pretty as Unreal, but it had a lot going for it, and I absolutely loved this game when it came out. Hexen 2, Heretic, the original Hexen. Only Heretic 2 was probably the game that I did not care for, but that's pretty much universally panned compared to everything else you're seeing here. And it is another game that just absolutely sings on the 3DFX card, as well as the Llama system on module. The only thing that took me a second is I couldn't figure out how in the hell you actually got mouse look configured in the game. You have to go into the console and configure mouse look and enable it yourself. That's how weird of a Wild West frontier 3D first-person shooter games with mouse were back in the day. Sometimes the developers just basically create a control scheme you absolutely hated, and by default you have to hold up page down and delete to be able to look up and down in the game, where if you just go to the console and configure mouse look, you have obviously the free range of motion with your mouse. But as far as the performance here is concerned, this looks exactly like Hexen 2, how I played it back in the day. And again, it is every bit as good as the first two games that came before it. And to be able to actually sit down on a period accurate PC and go ahead and play this, 10 out of 10. But get a soundtrack sample as far as the sound effects are concerned on the sound card, 45 seconds, and I'll be right back with more. Sounds correct to my ear, and if you're wondering why there wasn't any music underneath that, that's because the CD does stream in some of that audio, and I've been having a little bit of trouble actually getting that audio to come through. That's not an Itx-Llama problem, that's because I don't have the original CD for Hexen 2, so I am trying to rig up some sort of virtual CD-ROM drive for the actual Llama and Windows 98, but I love you can push spiders around in this game, especially when you freeze them. Now moving over to Quake 2, another game that everyone asked me to test, and one that I finally remember back in the day, and it's the exact same situation here. With the Itx-Llama, with that system on the module, with the 3DFX Voodoo 3, this game is running extremely well and looks every bit as accurate as something like Quake 2 would look back in the day. And again, that's what I can't stress enough. We are rendering this game on a period Voodoo 3. You're not using new graphics, you're not trying to emulate the game, you're not trying to get wrappers to make it run on modern graphics cards. You are using the graphics cards that people would have been using back when this game came out, or very close after it, to be able to render things. All of the real-time lighting of the different explosions, of the gunshots, everything else just looks correct here. And again, I've been trying to pixel peep and see if there's anything that seems to be drawing incorrectly, and honestly I can't find anything whatsoever. And I would say, as much fun as DOS is, I've been having more fun on the Windows 98 side of things running these games, because this was really when I was getting close to high school, or in high school, when I was playing these on my PC at home, and I absolutely fell in love with this genre and era of gaming, and it is one that's been so much fun to revisit on the Itx-Llama. It honestly feels like sitting down at the computer I owned in high school and playing the same game just in 2025 versus like 1999-2000. Even if Quake 2 came out before that, it was one of those things I had to wait a little bit to get a PC spec'd up enough to be able to play stuff like this. I would say that the models and the graphical art style definitely hold up. The models are a little bit chunky, but you can kind of just imagine what they would look like in a modern remake, and again, it just 100% works for me. Having the keyboard and mouse, having Windows 98, all of that underlying OS structure that I remember from being in high school is just so much fun to watch run, and that's why something like the Itx-Llama is such a great project. It transports you back in time to the era where you were using this hardware and it was brand new. And again, if you didn't grow up with Windows 98, it might take you a few minutes to learn it. It is one of those things, if you used it back in the day, you'll have the muscle memory for where everything is. If you didn't, you might have to Google a few things, but that's kind of the fun of projects like this. You either get to do exactly what you remember back in the day, or you get to learn something new and kind of discover what PC gaming was like back when something like Quake 2 was new on the market. Because I remember when the original Quake came out, absolutely loved that game. When I heard there was a sequel coming, it definitely was on my must-play list, and I've had fun ever since. And of course, I couldn't talk about something like a Windows 98 gaming PC without talking about Half-Life, the game that absolutely just basically changed the entire first-person genre as far as shooters go, with all of its different storytelling, its complete lack of levels, and just basically the ability to go from the beginning of the game all the way through to the end, getting a complete narrative structure. You will see it does drop a few frames as it goes into some more open areas, but I'm sure if I kind of improved on the overall driver situation here, I could get this game running a little bit better. But I love the introductory sequence, just how Valve sets up the universe and storytelling and world building of Half-Life, and it is one of those things that is one of the more fun areas of the game to actually talk about and show off. You can see I can move around, I've got mouse look, it's everything about Half-Life that I remember from back in the day. And honestly, when I first played this game, I did have a couple of frame drops as well because my hardware wasn't up to snuff, so it is fun to kind of see it happening here. This is the vanilla 1.0 version of the game. Maybe if I updated a little bit more as well, I'd have a little bit better performance on this, but I figured I would just run this as the retail disc just to see how well it did on the Llama, and everything seems to be holding up. I'd say 9.5 out of 10, but here comes your next soundtrack sample because the narrator in the beginning of the game is iconic. Listen and I'll be right back with more.
This train is inbound from Level 3 dormitories to Sector C test labs and control facilities. If your intended destination is a high security area beyond Sector C, you will need to return to the central transit hub in Area 9 and board a high security train. If you have not yet submitted your identity to the retinal clearance system, you must report to Black Mesa personnel for processing before you will be permitted into the high security branch of the transit system.
Sounds exactly like Half-Life should to me, and I was just playing around with some of the console commands trying to load into different areas, which basically seems to break the game entirely, and I forgot that you actually had to create a shortcut with a hyphen and then the word console to be even able to access the console in Valve's engine here. That was kind of a fun nostalgic moment when I remembered it's not like the Quake engine where you just hit the tilde key. You actually have to enable the console before you're ever able to use it. But seeing old Barney here, he looks exactly like he should, and for me, that is a 10 out of 10. It's so much fun to see all of these games that I remember and love from back in the day running on some retro gaming hardware that's also modern at the same time. So that's about the entirety of the Itx-Llama for me right now video wise. Unless there's something you particularly want to see, you can leave me a comment down below, but I've gone over the overall hardware. We've done a DOS gaming tutorial and overall exhibition, and we've done the same thing for Windows 98 now. So really I've kind of tapped out the Llama. It is a great board. I'm going to continue to play these games in the background, having as much fun as I did back in the day. And if you want to pick up a Llama for yourself, I will leave a link to the website below. You can grab one. It is a waiting list situation though. But we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.